Our Best of Texas first round is in the books. The high school season is officially over, and Joe talks with former Whittier College head coach Justin Pudwill. Here we go. It's the TXWaterpolo Podcast. James Smith in Austin, Joe Linehan in North Texas. What have you been up to, Joe?
I just kind of making it through this whole quarantine. I think we have a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel here going. So
I know, but it's bizarre, just completely bizarre. Like, I realize I haven't gone through my front gate in like 4 days or something like that. I took the dogs out for a walk, and as we've discussed, I think I might be made for this kind of thing because I actually have been so productive, and maybe you have too. But I'm getting a tiny bit antsy, but still grateful that everything is good. And
it's just the opportunity to kind of get up and get caught up on everything that you wish you had time to do before.
It really is. And to learn too, and we'll talk about that in a moment. There's so many opportunities for coaches that have been very useful. So the first news is the worst news. It's UIL made an announcement last week that all spring sports had been suspended, and TSCA followed suit. No surprise at all. Chairman Scott Slay confirmed it in an email to regional representatives. Oh gosh. Well, within a few hours of that UIL decision, and it's super sad, but none of it is a surprise.
No. I mean, I would have loved to have a kind of a high school season, especially for those seniors that aren't getting proms, that
crushing,
not get graduations.
Yep.
It would have been great to be able to have something in June, but I think it's important for the overall kind of the health and safety to kind of just follow the UIL guidelines.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's complete speculation, but even if they didn't follow UIL, which is impossible, it'd be difficult to find a facility, and oh man, it's just a mess. Just feel terrible for the seniors. I agree with you. And in fact, Scott mentioned a couple of things in his letter. First of all, to support the athletes who are going to need it, because I find myself actually, I'm sort of at a distance, right? So I'm not knee deep in the whole the process of being part of a high school team. But if you think back to what your experience was, my experience was in high school, if you just discovered halfway through your senior season, it's like, no, it's over. It's terrible. Like, it's just crushing blow. So support for their athletes, first of all, and then try to recruit coaches and officials for next year. I mean, let's take advantage of the fact that things are growing. And then finally, he was suggesting to take advantage of all these webinars and online learning that you and I have talked about before. It's on TXWaterpolo and Total Water Polo and all that. And there is a ton of that. So anyway, a very sad end to the season.
Yeah, I mean, but at least they got to play a little bit of a high school season.
Yeah.
There are other sports out there that didn't get to do anything. So, it's sad, but again, even if we were able to come back in June, I don't know how many teams would have been participating at this point.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Because it's a little difficult. Again, this is the same thing, we're going to talk about, whenever clubs get back up and running, if we did have a high school season, but say the Austin schools, they say, no, you can't compete. Well,
right. Yeah.
Is that really truly a state championship if not everybody that is competitive can compete? So
I know. Yeah, it was going to be very complicated, I suppose. The season ends with our final coaches poll, which is now ancient history. It was March 10th. The boys of St. Mark's were unanimous. The unanimous choice for number one, and on the girls' side, it was a much closer race, but Foster came out on top. That's the TXWaterpolo.com poll that we once upon a time used to put out there, but that's how the season ends, as best as we can figure it out, really.
Yeah, and it would have been fun to see them kind of played out in the pool, because I think there's a ton of really strong girls teams, and as well, I think St. Mark's had played tremendously, but I think there's probably at least two or three other strong teams out there that kind of could have given them a run for their money at state. So
yeah, the potential Final Four, assuming everything went as sort of planned, was going to be pretty special. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
On both sides.
On both sides, exactly.
Yeah, both genders. So
exactly, and St. Mark's, I think, was rightfully considered to be the top team. I think they were undefeated. They beat everybody, but It was closer than people think, with like a team like Guy or somebody like that. It would have been, oh gosh, it would have been really fun to see all that. Oh well. So with that, and you put it in terms of dominoes, which I think is a good one. We now know that the TISCA season is over, so the high school season is finished. We know that JOs are now delayed until essentially the winter, the late fall and winter. And now what's left? Like there's only one more issue, which is really figuring out when people can hop back in the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the last big kind of domino to kind of fall. It's going to be when can clubs start practicing again and or hosting tournaments, and then are there going to be any kind of restrictions on them kind of once they get back into the pool? So
right,
and everybody's going to be a little bit different, and I'm not rushing to get back into the water by any stretch of the imagination. If that's going to be kind of June 1, awesome. If it's going to be August 1 and that's what everybody deems safe, that's fine too. But I think everybody would love to get back into the pool sooner rather than later. And last week I did talk to a bunch of clubs that were slated to host events this summer, and also this upcoming fall. So like the Southwest Zone Events Committee is also trying to get kind of put together like a prospective schedule.
Right.
Like here's the schedule if it starts in June. Here's the schedule if it starts in August.
Yeah, so, moving target, right? I mean, it's impossible to do otherwise.
But at least, I mean, like the thought process is if we can get everybody a schedule out, then and then there's a little bit of hope, and right, people can start planning and kind of moving forward. I mean, it's about as much as we can do right now. So
yeah, much better than just throwing up your hands and saying completely, I just have no idea, so we're not even going to try. So yeah, that's like you said, a glimmer of hope. I think you and I are in sort of unique situations. I'm not sure, but it's the moment that my swim team that I'm affiliated with gets back in our pool, then so will we, water polo wise. And I have this suspicion that Williamson County and the town of Round Rock, the city of Round Rock, are going to make that decision sooner than others. I don't have any evidence to back it up. It's just that's the way that the city has sort of been in the past. And so I'm almost wary of the fact that they're going to say, yeah, come on back in, because they're going to set some pretty stringent rules on how that actually takes place. And so I'm going to have to adapt. But I'm not sure others are in quite the similar situation.
I think probably most schools, most clubs probably use school district pools.
Yeah.
So school districts are going to have different guidelines and different calendars and different timelines than, let's say, the city pools. So you're in a unique situation because I don't know a whole lot of clubs out there that actually use the city pools kind of for their dominant practice location. So it's going to be strange. There might be a kind of a section of the state that gets back in June there, and then right, there's another section that doesn't get in until August. So right, kind of some of the discussions have been, so let's just take the TAGS tournament, which is the Texas Age Group State Water Polo Champs, which is the state championship for 8th grade and 6th grade and under. It is a zone run event. We aren't under any school district type or school kind of overall just kind of governance. So we can put that event, whenever we want.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing is, say North Texas, because it was supposed to be hosted in North Texas this year. Say North Texas gets opened up here in June, but the Houston area doesn't.
All right.
So we really can't have tags yet, can we?
No.
Exactly.
Oh boy.
But then if it gets started in August, well, we probably shouldn't have tags, kind of 2 or 3 weeks after everybody gets back in the water.
Right.
And this is just one moving target of an event. So there's some space on the calendar in late October that we might put tags, but there's also kind of looking at the Southwest Zone quals. Obviously the 14, 12s and 10s, the National Junior Olympics is going to be in Thanksgiving, so we need to kind of count back, and we can't really have it any later than late September, early October to give everybody plenty of time to plan if they qualify.
Right.
So, and then it's probably going to be a little bit less teams, so it's probably going to be good to put it with another event, just so the event doesn't lose money, et cetera,
right,
too. So there's lots of stuff to think about. And something else that came up is the 1800 boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know about that as far as the NCAA rules are concerned. Are their college coaches going to want them to play? And also, once those kids go off to go to school, are they going to be? They're not going to be able to come back and play for a qualifier.
Right. Yep.
So, do you do that in August before they leave? Or if you don't get back into the pool until August 1, is that even going to be doable? So,
right.
there's lots of questions out there, but we're going to try to get a calendar out to everybody, and, understanding that, date and location is subject to change.
Right. I'm fascinated, and maybe I'm oblivious, but I still haven't heard from USA Water Polo about the date of it. What date the qualifier is. Meaning, I'm not articulating this very well. It's like the age as of distinction. It's typically August 1, right?
And that is August 1, 2020. It's still going to be
that's fixed.
Group. That is fixed.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just hadn't really seen it in writing anywhere, and that is not because nobody sent it to me. It's just I wasn't paying attention. So that's good. I'll share that with my team today. That's what I figured. That's good because we've got kids who just slide under that, just slide. They're very disappointed. We spoke about Scott Slay briefly, and it's a good segue to the coaches to coaches feature that we are doing on TXWaterpolo. It's a series of Zoom conferences, really learning opportunities. Last week, Scott did the fundamentals of the counterattack, and pretty good attendance, right, Joe?
Yeah, so we started. So Scott was our second one. The week before, we had Chris Cullen in Alley Hill. We had about 25 coaches there. Scott had about 35 coaches last week, and we hope to have more this week.
Good. Yeah, and who's that's Thursday. Yeah, who's featured then?
It's going to be Brandon Dion from Marcus High School, and he's also the club admin for Thunder. And he's specifically going to talk about, kind of just tell a story about how he started his kind of high school team about 4 years ago, and how it was only 35 kids on the swim team. And he started the water polo team, and how he helped use water polo to grow his swim team. And now they have 85 total kids on the swim team. And it's only been 4 years. And he's had a very successful kind of water polo team over the last couple of years. So.
Right. And you're doing a little goalie work too.
I'll probably add a little goalie stuff at the end because a couple of people have asked. So
yeah, good times. So that's totally necessary. I'm going to check in on that myself if I can. And then the next the following week is Mark Lawrence from Austin College. So that's
so cool. Mark's going to come on board on Thursday, April 30th, and he's going to talk about kind of movement and rhythm and balance, which is the fundamental base of all playing water polo. So
yeah. Very cool. At the same time, I'm still pretty fascinated. The Jack Coker was the head coach at Pepperdine for a while. He is now the head coach at a very successful young program called Oaks Christian up in Thousand Oaks, California, and he was on the USA men's staff for a while. And he has been doing what he calls coffee with Coker, and going over game film and analysis. And that's what he used to do for USA Water Polo, was that he was the film analyst for Dayon before the 2016 Olympics. So I've been absolutely fascinated by this. It's not terribly complicated, but I've just never really sat with somebody who's going through game film. And so very, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's mainly for coaches. And I think you have to be invited now because there was a couple of Zoom bombs. But
yeah, no kids.
And yeah, it's great. And then, there's other things out there too. I think Felix Mercado did a very good job with his recruiting kind of webinar last week. There was a webinar this past Saturday with all the Ivy League coaches. Brian Flax has been doing a good job with getting some content out there. And I do believe a lot of coaches are doing their own thing with their own clubs, which is great.
Yeah, there's Tim Daniel from the Midwest is doing one today, I think that's right. And so anyway, all of this stuff is on Total Water Polo. There's my pitch for the other site, because anything that we get from these coaches, we push out there, whether it's the event we put on the calendar or the video that they produce afterwards. We're trying really hard to push all that stuff out there, so it's available.
And all Texas-specific stuff is put on the TX Water Polo site.
Yeah, we make that distinction. Darn it, that's our point of pride. All right, Joe, let's come back with results from the first round of the Best of Texas tournament. Fascinating stuff.
Right about now, you might be expecting some song and dance about a product you don't need. Well, shush, we don't advertise here, and we want to keep it that way, so we sure would appreciate your help. Show your support by going to TXWaterpolo.com/donate so we can keep covering the sport we love in the great state of Texas.
Hi, this is Natalie Benson, and you are listening to a podcast about water polo in Texas.
James and Joe back with you. Best of Texas. So, Joe, when we put this poll out there, in which people are voting on teams from different eras playing against one another, hypothetical matchups, how many responses did you think we were going to get?
I was hoping to get about 200-300.
I was thinking if we get over 100, I'll be pretty. I will be happy enough. So marketing research, if your number of respondents is 30, then you can kind of toy around with those results. 100 is what's considered to be sort of more viable. 1,140 votes. So
that's awesome.
I'm stunned.
That's great. That's awesome. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of free time, I guess. So
yeah, and it wasn't even me voting. I didn't vote at all. And we did not restrict it, so people could do multiple votes. And obviously, people were highly selective about who they're going to choose. Yeah. But this is for fun. In fact, let me read this quote. It's so funny. One of the comments that we got from somebody who wrote in. So,
but as you look at this, for sure, there's a lot of recency bias for sure.
Recency bias, huge. It's huge. I mean, again, nothing. Joe and I have been talking about this as well. There's just no perfect way to do this. So anybody who's looking for, sort of statistical rigor, you're really not going to find it. It's made for fun. Hopefully you get to recognize some of these great teams. Here's one. But Jeff Kerrigan, here's the comment. It's like, did Sterling win state in 91, or was that the year that Humboldt demolished them? I get that year and the adjacent year mixed up. Has anyone besides Jennifer McFerrin from Humboldt been a state and NCAA championship? And then he ends with, your game is cute. So that's perfect. That's the feedback that we're looking for. I want that condescending your game is cute thing. It's very cool.
Yeah, so we're talking about what happened in Texas. Not necessarily, there's a lot of great athletes that graduated from a team in Texas and went off to go be an NCAA kind of athlete, and we're not counting that.
Joe,
because the answer to that guy's question is Zane Bilal. He won a state championship in 2007, and he came back with 4 NCAA championship wins.
Right. Yeah. Joe, that's our next thing. Is teams of the decade or no teams of Texas history. It's putting together your top 7.
Okay, then we're going to let's just go over this real quick first.
You don't want to move on yet? Okay, I'll keep my excitement to myself. All right, so here we go. Results, actually. So let's go over the girls first from the first round. I want you to comment on these teams. You actually did last time, but we can do it briefly. But round 1, Foster of 2019 beats Clear Creek by pretty convincingly 62 to 38%.
There's no surprise there. Just that's, again, I think the 2019 group can probably they're much better on getting on their phones and computers and voting. So
that's it. And who knows about this next one? I know Sterling had a big fan base on Twitter that was admonishing one another. Make sure you vote. And apparently it worked pretty decently because their 07 girls from Baytown Sterling beat Cy Creek from 1999 just barely.
And I think I've said it. I think I've said this before. That 2007 girls team is probably one of the best teams in the history of Texas water polo. So I'm happy to see them go on. That's nothing against the 99 Cy Creek girls.
Well, are you surprised it's that close? It was 51.7% versus 48.3%. So not a very close vote.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that it was that close. Yes.
All right. The Baytown Sterling fans came back in the next one. Their 1992 team beat 2006 Humboldt 57% to 43%. And then South Lake Carroll took out Marshall 6. I know I actually posted stuff in the West region to make sure that San Antonio fans went out there and voted. And I know some coaches from that area who went out there, but it wasn't enough. South Lake Carroll from 2016 beats Marshall 64% to 36%. Geyer of 2018, no shock there. But man, we put this vote out there, and one of the first tweets is, "Hey, vote for Geyer." So anyway, they clearly did so. 54.7% over Marshall.
I thought that was a pretty good showing by the 90, like considering that like the rest of the 70s and 80s teams were in the 30s. I thought that was a pretty good showing of the 45.3%.
I agree. Yeah, that's really good. And like you said, the bias is in favor of the more recent one by far. And then maybe the closest vote of the entire tournament so far. In fact, I think that's right. 2014 Baytown Sterling girls versus 1997 St. Agnes, both of whom had, again, big fan bases on Twitter telling everybody to vote. The result was Baytown Sterling 50.2 versus 49.8. I feel like we should send this to like the Florida Supreme Court, in order to count the Chads.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mac kind of said on his podcast that he thought the St. Andrews girls in '97 were one of the strongest teams ever, and I think the 2014 team had kind of Callie Woodruff, and she's probably one of the best players of all time to come out of Texas. So
yeah, that one went back and forth. That was really fun to watch. Next was 04 Clear Lake with a close win over Baytown Sterling from 01. So Sterling didn't get every single victory. It was 53.5 to 46.5%. And then the final one was Side Creek. That's from 2016. I guess this team from Clark in 1984 might not have as many fans. It was a 71 to 29%. That's probably the right outcome, but maybe a little more disparate than we wanted.
Yeah. And there's going to be some good matchups here in the next round for girls. I think starting off, you got Foster versus the 2019 Foster versus 2007 Baytown Sterling, both coached by Scott Sled.
Well, yeah, that'll be interesting.
His favorite of his kids. So.
Yeah. And 92 Baytown Sterling versus 2016 South Lake Carroll.
It's going to be like the new guard versus the old guard a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean? So that's sort of
it's the 90s versus the 2010s.
Yeah. And late 2010s. I remember that team from Carroll. That was a quite good team.
And that's the only pre-2000 team still kind of around. So.
Oh, there you go. So Sterling fans and people and fans of the 90s, get out there and vote. Next is Baytown Sterling from 2014 against Geyer of 2018.
Yeah, I think again, kind of the Callie Woodruff was a big stud on that 2014 team. I think kind of Catherine Cullen kind of led that Geyer group, but they were very deep and strong, and they have a ton of people that have played or are going to play at the collegiate level. So
right. And then finally, Cypress Creek of 2016, who had that big victory versus 04 Clear Lake.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be. That's just a battle of kind of two strong, kind of the Houston teams. So it's going to be fun.
All right, boys, let's go move on. So no surprise, I would say, first round is a Flower Mound of 65.2% over Lamarck. That 1974 team from Lamarck, 34.8.
No surprise.
Yeah, no surprise. And then the next game, again, a pretty close one. Clear Lake from 96 over the 91 Baytown Sterling team, 54% to 46% really.
I think there's a big backing of that mid 90s kind of the Clear Lake boys. They were a dominant team there, and that team was selected, I think, as kind of a representative of that group. So I believe that they're going to go far just because they're going to have a lot of people behind them. So it's going to be
good. Yeah. For those of you who haven't done so already, we just published a story from a guy named Jeremy Mouse, who used to write for me with Total Water Polo. We were partners at one point. And so he asked, why wasn't this team included? So his 99 Side Creek team was quite good. I don't have the record in front of me, but a really interesting story, because if you listen to my interview with Peter Hudnut some time ago, he talked about coming to Texas and to Houston and playing the teams. Well, this was apparently the team, right? So Jeremy goes over this details of that season, including their game against Harvard Westlake. So really interesting stuff.
And I think there's a lot of teams out there that may not have been included in the top 16 boys or girls. They were great teams. This is not discounting any of those achievements or any of those players. It's just that we had to kind of whittle it down to the top 16, and we just kind of move on. So
totally, I love it, and people are trying to make their case. That's what I'm into. I really love it. So next, Baytown Sterling from 01 over 92 Humble. That's about 66 to 34%. Yeah.
I think I think that Baytown Sterling boys team, I think in our interview today with Justin Pudwill, he's going to go over the strengths of that team. I think that was probably one of the better teams out there. So
okay, great. 09 Clear Lake, 66% over the 85 team from Clark, that dominant, basically that sort of decade of dominant team from Clark. They got 34%.
Yeah, again, I think that's a lot of the the 80s versus the 2000s. So
yeah. For those who think that St. Mark's is going to get every vote, that's not correct. Strake Jesuit from 2012 beats that 1975 team from St. Mark's, the one that won their first championship, and it wasn't terribly close. It was about 65% to 35%. Yeah, give or takes. I remember that team from Strake. That was one of my first visits to Texas.
And I don't know a whole lot of people that remember the 1975 St. Mark's team. So
unfortunately, yeah. 07 Baytown Sterling over 87 Marshall, 66% to 34%.
And I think I've said it before. I think that 2007 Baytown Sterling team with Zane, Matt, and Stevie was one of the strongest teams ever. So
and 06 Cypress Creek over 86 Baytown Sterling, 53 to 47.
Eric Sherrar and his group of the Cypress Creek teams from the mid 2000s was a very strong group. Again, I think that's the whole, it's the recency bias a little bit. The 70s and 80s and 90s teams didn't fare so well. So.
No, not in this one. But we should, anyway, we'll talk about that another time. The final matchup in the first round, St. Mark's of 2015, did a bit of a job on the team from Holmes in 1981. It was a 65 to 35%. So St. Mark's goes through that 2015 team.
Yeah, I think that 2015 is probably one of their most talented teams, and they were a strong team. Again, that kind of represents they've won 5 out of the last 6 championships. So, and they had Timothy Simmons that went to go play at Cal. They had Nathan Ondrusik that went to go play at Harvard, and they've been kind of big contributors. So I think that was one of the most talented teams and best teams in the history of Texas too. So.
Yeah, totally. So for now, here's the second round. So let's just start. 2018 Flower Mound versus 1996 Clear Lake. You want to go through the rest?
I think that's going to be a good matchup. So again, it's going to be kind of the recent team versus the lone team from before 2000. So
yeah. Go ahead.
And then Baytown Sterling and Clear Lake. Those are that's going to be an interesting kind of matchup. That's kind of two teams from the 2000s, and the same thing with the 2012 Strake versus the 2007 Baytown Sterling. And that'll be a close matchup. I think the Baytown Sterling team, again, I just kind of mentioned it, is kind of one of the strongest teams that I've ever seen.
Right.
And then the St. Mark's versus the Cy Creek, that'll be okay. That'll be the St. Mark's kind of the juggernaut versus the Houston teams from the mid 2000s. So
right. Very interesting. So we'll post those up later today. We'll put our new polling out there by tomorrow. I mean, I'm so pleased with how much we got in response that I don't feel a terrible amount of pressure to put that out there right away. But those are the matchups that you will see, and we'll be asking you to vote once again. Go ahead and keep forwarding it to your friends via your phone and just flip through there. And once again, it's possible that we will ask everybody to answer every question, because there was despite the fact that I'm delighted that over 1,100 people responded, there are a lot of people who just voted for one team, and that's fine. It was fun, but maybe we want to get a little more rigorous about this. All right, another short break, and then back with excerpts from Joe's conversation with former Whittier College head coach Justin Pudwill.
Hey guys, it's Ben McElmore with Houston Rockets. Just want to encourage you guys to continue to help one another, stay safe, continue to wash your hands daily, continue to practice social distancing as we go through this tough time, but we all will get through it together. Sending love to all our NBA fans. Hope to, get back out there on the court. Continue to stay quarantined, clean, and go Rockets.
Hey, this is Mark Lawrence from Austin College, head coach of the men's and women's water polo programs and home of our Kangaroos. When I'm interested in what's going on with Texas water polo, I always listen to TXWaterpolo Podcast.
All right, welcome. Today we have Justin Pudwill, who is currently the head high school referee in Houston. And Justin was also the head coach at Whittier College in Southern California from 2007 to 2008 for both the men and women. Welcome, Justin. How are you doing?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Good. So you moved back to Texas in the summer of 2018, but a lot of people, I don't think they know that you actually grew up in Texas and played high school water polo in Texas.
I moved from Huntington Beach, California, the middle of my junior year of high school. Okay. So, I did a year and a half at Ross S. Sterling.
In Baytown?
Yeah, in Baytown. And then from there, went to college. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in California. My dad was kind of in the oil realm of business. And so he got transferred the middle of my junior year. So, it was definitely unique coming from Huntington Beach to Baytown, Texas.
That is a big kind of difference there.
Yeah.
So as far as water polo was concerned, I kind of had you played out in HB before coming.
Yeah, I grew up, like I said, in Huntington Beach. I played at Ocean View High School in Huntington, and then I was predominantly a baseball player for my whole life. And then my freshman year of high school, started doing water polo to get out of PE. And the coach was a liar. He said it was basically hanging out in trunks and getting a tan. And I already surfed in the morning, so I was like, well, this will be perfect. Like, I'm as long as I don't have to be in this, kind of whacked out PE class. I was like, I'm in. I didn't have baseball till the spring, so I started doing it, and it was horrible at first, and it was, I didn't really like being horrible, so kind of accelerated kind of my thirst for the game, whatever. But I could throw the ball extremely hard.
There you go. I mean, your competitive kind of like the instincts kind of kicked in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you it wasn't just hanging out in the swim trunks on the pool deck at Ross Sterling.
No, not at all. Yeah. So that was, I mean, the unique thing, I was quite good in California, like an average player, I guess, in that realm. It was, by no means a superstar or anything, but the one thing about moving to Baytown with Coach Mack was he tells his stories. Like, one of his like most favorite days was the day he was in the office and they called him from the counselor's office and said, "Hey, we have this kid who just moved into Baytown and Sterling, his school. He's from California and he plays water polo." And I think Coach Max says, "Is he big?" And they said, "Yeah, he's pretty tall." And so like within like 45 seconds, he's running down the hallways, like, panting, almost having a heart attack. So, but he definitely took it way more serious than the two junior college guys that coached us at Ocean View. So that was quite refreshing to get a little bit more structure. But then it was definitely a much different sport than what I was used to in California. So.
But do you have fun playing here?
I did. I mean, oh man, yeah. It was unique because there were some teams that were good and a lot of solid players, and there were some teams that were not very good, and so I didn't really get to play that long, and that kind of was a bummer. Just because if I scored 6 or 7 goals in 3 minutes, that was my time. So, once they figured out, I think who I was, I really never went one-on-one with a lot of guys after about game 10. I usually had 2 or 3 guys on me. So it was quite interesting at times, but I mean, it was good. I met a lot of super awesome people, lifelong friends, which was cool.
And then you went and played water polo in college kind of afterwards, right?
Yeah. One of the premier institutions for water polo. And this is how premier it was when I attended. My first 2 years, it was named one thing, and the last 2 years, it was something else. So the my first 2 years, it was Salem Techio University, which was water polo school in West Virginia. Again, I make some really unique choices at times.
Okay, we all make our unique choices out there.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, it's now called Salem International. It's still and it's in West Virginia. It's not a one-stop light town. It's a one-stop sign town. That's how big it was.
Yep. It was I believe the best story I have about that is my freshman year. I was going to drive there, and my dad was tuning up my truck like the day I was going to leave or before I was going to leave, and he broke the carburetor off. And so my mom had to like call off work, and like we had training camp in like 2 days, and she was like, "Okay, I got to drive you up there." And my parents are old school, so I did everything on my own for college. Applications, phone calls, recruiting, everything. They didn't do one portion of it. And so my mom, we're driving up to Salem, and we get off on whatever it is. I think it's called Main Street off like 20. And my mom's just laughing. She's like, "Are you serious?" I had to tell her, "Shut up. You're not paying a dime for this. So leave me alone." So, yeah, it was, but it was, I mean, I enjoyed it. I played, water polo, swimming, and baseball there. So I was really busy.
And then after you came back to Texas, do you play a little semi-pro baseball?
Yeah, a couple months in and around the College Station area. I did the same thing with water polo right after I was done. I played in Canada for a couple months. I knew a guy there who was on their like national junior team, so I went and was able to stay with him and train with their junior national team and their club team in Ontario, which was a lot of fun. And then, was at College Station, and it was a deterrence of becoming an adult, basically. Made no money, but I did get to keep playing sports, which was fun at a competitive level.
And I'm sure you got a free meal here or there, right? So.
Oh, free housing, free food. It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was a 21-year-old's dream.
Yeah, like exactly. And then I moved down to Texas. I grew up in Texas, and then I moved back to Texas in January of 2003. And you were there, kind of helping Scott with some club. Scott Slay with some club water polo. And then you moved out to kind of California. But before you moved out, I believe you coached some pretty good players there, like kind of back in Baytown, kind of whenever they were, a bunch of 10 and unders?
Yeah, let's see. Scott had been home for a year after he was at Slippery Rock, and we kind of met each other. And plus, we kind of knew each other while I was at Sterling, so we kind of developed a good friendship just being in the area. And then of course, playing against each other. But Scott had been back for a year after he was done at Slippery Rock. And then I was back 1 year following. And so he started Dirty Bay Water Polo, which was, a lot of the high school kids, and then some of the kids, a lot of siblings from the summer swim team. I think it was like Baytown Barracudas. I don't even remember.
I think it's had a couple different names kind of over the years. So
yeah. So the core group of kids we had, which went on to be extremely good players, was like the Zane Bilal, Stevie Ray, Matt Chappa, Amy Olson. Trying to think what else.
And Katie and Darla.
Katie Vasquez, Darla. Yeah, there was a good group. My sister was that age. She might have been a year younger than them. But those were kids who it kind of shows. I think there's some of the, or they have some extremely good success stories as having water polo kind of take you through college and education. But that group of kids, definitely saw a lot of different facets of water polo, and it got them to a lot of different places. They were all extremely good.
And those are the kids that played for Sterling back in the late 2000s and such, and kind of dominated kind of the high school water polo world then.
Yeah.
But you left at this, I guess you started at Occidental?
Yeah, I was the assistant men's and women's coach for water polo at Occidental. I want to say 03, 05, or 04 to 06. It might be 04 to 06. I did 2 years there, and then, kind of decided, okay, I think I would be a quality head coach. And so then I left there and went to Huntington Beach High School, and I was there for, I finished the year out, but I kind of knew I was getting the job at Whittier, let's say like at the end of CIF swim season. So I coached everything at Huntington Beach with another coach there, men's and women's, or boys and girls water polo, and then boys and girls. I was also the swim coach as well. So, and then started at Whittier in 07.
Yeah, was that a big step from the high school coaching ranks to the college coaching ranks?
No, I mean, the really unique thing about my time at Occidental was the coach that was there, the head coach, had a ton of respect for me and kind of what I viewed in the game and how I trained the kids. So I felt like I got to do a lot, which was really cool. And I know that there's some assistants that don't have as much involvement in the programs at times. So I kind of took that and always wanted to make sure I incorporated it, so that I was always doing a good job for my assistants once I became a head coach. But no, it wasn't. I was, of course, definitely, as when I started coaching, the pinnacle, I guess, in the United States is being able to coach at the collegiate level. That's
Sure.
kind of like our ceiling, other than the national team and stuff like that. So
There's very few spots there.
yeah. And there's very few spots in the at the collegiate coaching rank. So, I got that job when I was 26. And so I think I was the youngest coach in the NCAA history for a while. There might be some now, but I always tell my boss, I said, was I your fourth choice, or was I the only person who took it for the money? Because Whittier was not, it had some success before I got there in like 04 on the men's side, but it wasn't a powerhouse, and it was a really, really small school. But I didn't really kind of understood. I was like how I ended up with that gig. So maybe it's true to form. You got to be a little lucky sometimes. Right place, right time. You want to say it.
And exactly. And I think Whittier was lucky to have you. For those that don't know, Justin made Whittier into a powerhouse, and he was probably one of the best recruiters that I've ever seen. And just kind of tell us a little bit about those years, about kind of how you built the program and kind of sustained the success.
Well, it was unique. I think it took me a year to kind of figure out. For those who don't know, like, the most candid thing I can say about collegiate water polo and being a coach is recruiting is 90% of it. It's just,
I agree.
It's very encompassing. You can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have kids that can do what you need them to do, it's going to be extremely hard. So it was definitely, it took me about a year to kind of navigate things and kind of figure out what the niche was for Whittier and what kind of kids I could get or were recruitable, and stuff like, it took a little time to kind of build the savviness of that. But it was my third year on the men's side was our first national championship. So we actually lost in the semifinals of SCIAC conference, but went on to beat Air Force in the first round of WWPA. So I think it was one of the highest finish for a SCIAC team in the WWPA in history. I'm pretty sure, at least modern day history. And then it took me a little while to kind of get the girls program running, just kind of where I wanted it to. But after a while, the good thing about collegiate sports is, and especially if you're a recruitable athlete, is being able to talk to the current athletes that are there. And after you've been there for a while, I think a lot of athletes want to know that you're credible. So if I told a senior, hey, this is where I think you would help us out in our program, and this is what I think I'm going to be able to offer you here, whether it's competing for a championship or playing time and stuff like that. You want your current athletes to be able to hold true to that. It can be like, yeah, coach is telling the truth, like everything he's telling you is going to be exactly correct.
Yeah.
Which, in the collegiate coaching, athletics, sometimes it's not always honest, and people will say some things to kind of get a kid there or whatever they need to do. And I think that kind of comes back and kind of will bite you reputation wise, and that stuff doesn't play out very long. So
I completely agree with you. And as far as the coaching, as you know, I coached in college kind of a little bit, and I was always like, I'm just going to be completely and utterly honest. This is the way it is. This is the way I am. And I do believe that you have to be like kind of honest kind of with the athletes, and you have to, or they have to know that you care. And because they're going to ask why. And if you answer the question, if they know that you care, they're going to believe you. So,
yeah. And I just, I was like, well, I'm not going to, I was kind of like not scared, but I was an extremely disciplined coach, and I made my teams work extremely hard. I always told people I want to, this might be Division III water polo, but I'm going to give you all of the Division I I got. Like anything I can do to make us better, we are going to do it. We will train harder than any team in our conference. We will put in more hours. I will put in more research. I will scout more. I will do whatever I have to do. So, my first couple of years, I don't think I really would tell a recruit that. And then I just said, oh, whatever. I'm just going to tell them exactly what they're going to get, because if they came there, then they were like, oh no, I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Exactly.
And you would have an unhappy athlete or an unhappy coach. And so it just didn't work out. So I feel like once by my third year at Whittier, we kind of had some success. We tailed off a little bit. I mean, a little bit was like, for me, after a while, not being in the championship game. And that was just due to our facility being built. So like after 2009, I went through 2 years with no pool. We were traveling.
Never fun.
Traveling nomads. But then by the first year, we got our pool at Whittier, I want to say 2012 for the men. I think it was 2012. By the next year, we were in the championship game, and so were the women. And so I think from there, 2012 to 2018, I think I was in every Sky championship game.
I'm sure you've listened to kind of the MAC kind of podcast that we've had the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
So you play for MAC. Any thoughts on like kind of what MAC was saying and stuff, or the history of water polo in Texas, like kind of some of the best teams, boys, girls, except?
Yeah, I do. And he shouldn't have been so bashful, but that his, I guess it was 2001. I have two boys teams that I think had the most talent, and I think they won their years. The 01 Sterling group with Dustin Fleming, Dusty Gaudet, Trace Ruddick, my brother Andrew Pudwill, Jay Ray was on that squad. Stevie Ray and Zane, they were all freshmen, so they were all really young, or 8th graders, and so I was there coaching during that time. That was an exceptionally good team, very strong. They only lost one game, and I think they beat Clear Creek in the final, like 12-4. Like, it was stomping.
Just the domination.
Yeah. And then the Zane, Stevie, Matt Chappa, that group, whenever they were seniors, was really good. And I only base that on this, looking at it as a college coach, like that group, I tried to recruit Matt, Zane, Stevie. I think those were the three, and we had some ties to it, of course. And then looking back on it, on my brothers, that 01 team, there were 3 or 4 kids that could play at a high level in college. They wouldn't have been, superstars or anything, but they would make a dramatic impact on a program, I think. So that's kind of how I look at it. The women's team, I do remember that St. Agnes team that he was talking about, because I think I played that year. I was a senior, and I think they were really strong, and they were all really good up the middle. Like, they had a really good goalie, and I can't remember who was what, but that girl, a really good center and a really good center defender.
Oh, Jenny Edwards?
Yes. And I think she went to Hartwick. I can't remember exactly where they went, but I always kind of look at, like, success sometimes is making sure that sport gets you to college, and if you're having a place where you have value and you have a really good career, if you get like 4 or 5 of those on one high school team, they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Like, people used to ask me, so Joe, what team's going to win here? And then and they go, yeah, just give me a sec. And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are. I go. And he goes, so what do you count up? I go, oh, the amount of kids that did club water polo.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, and then a lot of the coaches for the club teams kind of back then and now, I think they do a good job of kind of creating some strong foundation for success. And it's not just water polo skills, it's the life skills. And those are the type of things that the college coaches are looking for.
Yeah, no, and that, I would say, in Texas, directly probably has direct correlation on your success. Like, how much club water polo do you play and how early do you start?
Exactly.
And putting in, time and effort. So, but yeah, I mean, I missed a good portion of it, but I did recruit a lot of kids out of Texas at times. So, and usually you have some kind of tie to that kid, whether it's like, oh, that coach used to be my, we're really good friends, or, you get a recommendation here or there, or I coached that kid when they were 8 and now they're 18,
or 30 or whatever it could be.
Yeah, which is true to form. But yeah, I don't remember, too many, I would guess, like team wise, because once I got into college coaching, I was definitely more just interested in the athlete. Like, I could care less who wins, right? So it was like, I'm watching that athlete over there because I think they can help me win at my level. So.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us on the TXWaterpolo Podcast. I do appreciate it. Just kind of take care and be safe and stay healthy.
You too, Joe. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Joe. I think we're done, except maybe to remind everybody about a few things that are coming up, right?
Yeah, we have the Coach to Coaches this upcoming Thursday at 12:30 with Brandon Young, and next week with Coach Mark Lawrence. And then there's other stuff coming up with obviously don't forget to vote for the Best of Texas. And
darn right.
There's other stuff that you're going to keep posting on the Total Water Polo site, right?
Darn right. And then you heard excerpts with Justin Pudwill today, and we'll do like we did last week with Mihai, and we'll put out the entire interview by Thursday. Could even be earlier than that, but you get to hear the whole thing. So that's coming up as well.
Although we don't have a whole lot of water polo going on, I think there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and it's going to gear us up for an exciting summer or fall of water polo to be played.
I hope so.
And everybody's going to be excited to be back in the pool.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, they're going to get tired of voting for all this stuff. It's all hypothetical. But yeah, it'd be great to get back in the pool. Until then, thanks to Justin Pudwill for taking the time to talk with us. And thank you for listening and telling a friend about the TX Waterpolo Podcast. You can find us at TXWaterpolo.com to listen to the podcast, to find us on social media, leave comments, as we got last week, a lot of good ones. Give to the cause, and you can also just generally figure out what's going on with the game, both at txwaterpolo.com and Total Water Polo. So until next week, so long from Austin.
All right, take care, Jim.
Loaded up inside an open eye, believe in the horizon of a better place. Busy hanging out my thoughts to dry, 'cause I've been in the rain of my unconscious ways, trying to turn the world into a playground with all my might. Tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, waiting in line.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.
My dog is scratching at the door.
I can hear him.